Thank you very much, Jan. I'm actually chuckling because I have a very loud voice, and I was thinking if my husband could see me putting on a microphone, he would probably say, Because I say I have a loud voice because he is so hard of hearing. He claims I've had a loud voice way before he was hard of hearing. So, anyways. So I'm Joni Barnard from the Office of Responsible Research Practices, and we truly are really happy to be with you today. We know that what we do in our office is not always viewed as the most pleasant task, so we really are here to provide you with some resources, to show you a face, like Jan said, so that you know where to go for help. And I want to piggyback real quick on something Jan said about her driving simulation project. When I was working on my dissertation 8 years ago in workforce development, if my advisor would have looked at me and said, someday you're going to be working in the Office of Responsible Research Practices, I would have said, I don't think so. But here I am. And that it's very good. I am truly enjoying what we're doing. The office is becoming more and more customer service oriented. With Jan's leadership, she has really helped us move that way. She has provided us with extra resources to do more outreach for faculty and students. And so it's really an exciting time in our office because we feel like we're really being able to get out there and help and make the process easier. So what I would like to do, first of all, if I could just ask, I know that you have varying levels of experience. How many of you have completed city training? Okay, so the majority. That's good. That's good. Okay. So what I'd like to do is start a little bit and talk about a few acronyms because it's very confusing. So you'll hear my office, and I bet I didn't pull this up. Sorry about that. Let me pull this up here. Here we go. Okay, so our office is, you will hear it referred to as ORRP, the Office of Responsible Research Practices. And another acronym you will also hear is the IRB, Institutional Review Board. So the mission of our office, the Office of Responsible Research Practices, is to provide support to faculty and students and anyone who's doing research at Ohio State University, okay? Now, the support that we provide is you submit your IRB applications to our office, and we help with making sure that that application is complete and that it can go to the next step to be reviewed by the Institutional Review Board, okay? Now, can anyone tell me who is on the institutional review boards? I can't hear either. Who? Faculty. Okay, faculty. There are faculty on the IRBs. There are community members on the IRBs. We want people that aren't scientists. We want that stay-at-home dad sitting there listening to an educational research study and deciding, I don't know if I'd want my child to be in that study. So faculty, community members, there's a range of people that are on the institutional review boards. And I'm sure you'll be able to relate to this because the faculty that do this, it's a voluntary service. And it is a lot of work, and they work very, very hard. But it's also important to know that they are doing everything that they can to facilitate your research, not to be a hindrance to it, which is the approach that our office takes as well. As Jan said, again, it's federal regulations that make some aspects difficult, but we have to do it, and we have to do it the right way because we're all doing our research under the umbrella of The Ohio State University. Okay? So I like to just give that context. I think it really helps to know kind of who our office is, who the institutional review boards are. So at Ohio State, we have the Social and Behavioral Sciences. We have 2 medical boards, Cancer and Biomedical. And then we also have a Western IRB, which is actually a for-profit board. Any questions so far? None? None? Okay, now let me ask this. How many of you have submitted an IRB application to our office? Great, quite a few. Okay, so hopefully maybe we're gonna have some questions. Okay, I want to now, okay, we have a lot of policies on our website. And don't think of policy as a scary word, because there's really useful information there for you to help you fill out your application, to answer questions about the type of research that you're doing. So if you look, the very first section talks about human research protections. So if you look at this first policy, it actually talks about the Human Research Protection Program, why we have it in our office. Basically, this gives the mission of the office as far as providing support to faculty and students, supporting the IRBs, providing education, and that type of thing. So, like I said, all of these are on there. I'm sure it's more than you would ever want to read, but it's important to know. What did I just do? Oh, okay. The second part goes over IRB submission and review of research. This is where it will help you with the level of review that you're going to need. It's going to help you decide, is it possible my research could be exempt? Does it have to be submitted for IRB approval? And Tani is actually going to show you our forms, and she'll talk a little bit more about that. The next area is study procedures. And this is going to give you some specific considerations. For example, are you doing research with children? If so, as far as the consent process, you have to be familiar with assent and parental permission. Assent is basically getting consent from a child. So those are special circumstances. It gives you a sample of an event. What if something goes awry in your study? And sometimes people say, oh, in SBS research, that never happens. Yes, it does. It does happen. Just sometimes things go wrong. You're videotaping a group of children and another child scoots into the video. The parents find out and they're upset. Okay, it's probably going to be an adverse event. Okay, then the next group is research involving special populations. So that would be like children, prisoners, people that are cognitively impaired. If you're using a special population, you would want to look at those. And then we have special types of research. A lot of those, as you can see, are medically based, talking about investigational drugs and biologics and things like that. One important one for you to note, though, is research performance sites and collaborative research. So that's if you are collaborating with people at other institutions to do your research. There's some special guidelines for doing that. It's a great thing to do, and we support it, but we just have to figure out kind of who is overseeing it and what agreements we need to have in place to do that. Okay, and then the last section, if you wanted to know more about, well, who are the faculty on the IRB? Their roster is posted on our website. You can see their different areas of scientific expertise, and that information should be very helpful. Questions? Yes.
In terms of off-site research, does that webpage, does it talk about international research, so where you visa or like in foreign countries? I mean, I know roughly that the procedures are rather complicated.
Right. We actually have a specific appendix. I believe it's U. Is that right, Tani? Appendix U, which you have to submit with international research. And it describes the things that you need to do. Let me make a couple points about that, though, because international research is growing, and that's a wonderful thing, and we want to be very supportive of that. A couple things you need to do. One is to allow enough time to get your approval, because oftentimes there's just a lot more back and forth with that. The main thing we have to do with international research is establish the local context and who's doing the oversight of that. Okay, so you're doing a study with tomato farmers in Brazil. Okay, OSU is still approving that research and is responsible, you as the PI, for everything that goes on with the study. So we would need to make sure that you as the PI can provide the expertise for the local context, or we might need to get a consultant, which this is all fine. We will do this, and we will help you facilitate the process, but can you see that it would just take a little bit more time to do it? So there's just some things with international research that you need to be aware of. And I would also suggest calling one of us and, over the phone, talking about what you want to do, and we can give you some tips on getting things started.
I work in theater, and there was a time when I would do audience surveys, and under the IRB protocols, are those no longer legitimate resources for research, given that I can't then have the audience members fill out individual surveys? I mean, I can ask them questions about their reaction to an event, but in terms of, and ideally have them submit this anonymously, but then tracking them down and having them be part of the profile I would need to create for individuals. Does that eliminate the option to use an audience survey as part of research?
No, it wouldn't. If you were doing, and let me just back up, I'm going to answer your question, but that's another thing that our policies help you with, is actually determining if you're doing human subjects research. And if you're doing, the regulations define it as a systematic study, okay? So if you're doing a survey with an audience, that's a group of human subjects. And if it's a systematic investigation, as far as, your survey, your questionnaire, maybe you're making hypotheses on how they might respond, and then you may have the hopes of publishing that, that's going to fall into research. But that's totally fine to do that.
Your website has the sort of the line between when it is, and when it's, I guess, legitimate and not legitimate.
You mean when it's research and not research?
Or when I'm required to.
I'm not sure what you mean by legitimate.
When does it need to submit a protocol?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so if you're doing, we have actually examples on there, because a lot of questions come up between quality improvement and research, because sometimes quality improvement is not research and you do not need approval. So if you were doing that only to improve what you were doing with your theater or whatever, for your own internal purposes, then you would not need approval.
Right, but this would not be that case. Say I'm investigating a script that is of a very abstract nature, and I'm trying to assess how an audience of a certain demographic or sort of expected sort of range responds to this. Mm-hmm. And I'm with the hopes of publishing that.
That is research.
And do I have still the opportunity to ask of these audience members questions where I don't have the means to get information from them about their backgrounds or everything else that would be part of an IRB investigation?
Oh, yeah.
Again, that's what I guess I can go to the website and find out.
You have to describe your population, but in that kind of situation, it's not like you're going to be handing out informed consent things to sign ahead of time. And you're not going to know a lot of the specifics about them other than that they are the audience attendees at your performance, right?
So I can have that level of anonymity and still consider them legitimate research subjects.
There are ways to do it, but this is one of those situations where you're going to want to pick up the phone and call
Yes.
and say,
Right.
this is what I'm doing, talk to me about what I need to do in terms of the human subject protection side, and they will guide you in terms of what you need to submit and how you make your descriptions.
And we really tell everyone, for everything we tell you, there's always an exception. You know, we say you have to get consent. Oh, but then there's a waiver of consent. So there's a way to do what you want to do. And Jan's right, you should just call us and go over it. Others? Anything else? Okay, the last thing that I want to just point out to you, we have a group of reviewer reference sheets that have been put together. And when we are training new IRB members, this is what we give them. It is extremely detailed. It's probably more information that you would ever want. But if you were to use these in going through your application, you're going to be on track, okay? For example, here is selection of subjects. So who's to be enrolled? Is the population appropriate? What type of recruitment process are you going to use? What materials? And if you were to check your application with all of these elements, you'd probably be in pretty good shape. This is, again, what we tell our new reviewers to use when they're actually looking at your protocol to give you feedback. So it's really an outstanding tool and, you know, can be very, very helpful resource. Questions on those? Okay, any other questions for me? I'm going to turn it over to Tani, and she's going to talk more about forms and some contact information. But I did want to mention that I talked with Terry briefly, and I would be happy sometime to come back up if you all could get like a group of people together, maybe even faculty and students, and I could go through maybe a detailed session with you going through the IRB application. If that's something that you'd be interested in doing, I would be happy to do that. Yes?
I'm assuming that offer stands for those of us that aren't on the Mansfield campus, but on one of the others?
Yes, absolutely.
Make sure you do the work.
Yes, no, absolutely. Yeah. And you know, I guess, and what I would just ask with that is that we tried to coordinate it and get as many people together, faculty, students, but yes, I'd be happy to do that.
No, we go everywhere.
We do.
I just wanted to make sure. We go to Mansfield, we
Yeah.
go to Marion, we go to Worcester.
Uh-huh. And I will have some cards later, and I'll be happy to give you my card. Thank you. Tani?
And I will need this because my voice is, I'm a lot more soft-spoken. I'm always told to speak up, so let me know if I need to speak up more. I noticed a few of you, when Joni asked you if you've taken City, some of you did not raise your hand. So if you are planning to do human subjects research, you do get to have the pleasure of taking City. City's another one of those acronyms that we have. It's Collaborative and Institutional Training Initiative. It's a course online for human subjects protection, and it was created by University of Miami. And it used to be called Collaborative IRB Training because it was just the human subjects training. Now they offer responsible conduct of research training on there, good clinical practices, training with health information, privacy. So there's other City courses out there. It's a good thing to let your students know. Occasionally we run into situations where people are in a rush, they look at the course menu, and they accidentally pick the wrong course. And they're all about 4 or 5 hours long, so we'd hate for people to take the wrong coursework, because the only one that will work for IRB or exempt submissions is the human research course. And there is a basic one, that's the one that takes the longest. And then after 3 years, you expire. So if you ever see something from Prestage.2, please don't delete my email. It's an automated email that'll come to you. Hopefully it doesn't go in your junk box, but it'll let you know that you're expiring. And the refresher courses are shorter. Has anyone taken refresher yet? Okay, so a lot of you have. And again, once you do it, then you're good for another 3 years. And then we just kind of go through this cycle. So we do check for completeness, like Joni said, when your submissions come in. And a lot of times when things are incomplete, sometimes questions aren't answered all the way. Sometimes there's no appendices attached. But oftentimes it's somebody on your project hasn't completed city. So you can check that, or you can check our office if you have a long list of personnel, and we can check for you. What I wanted to just kind of finish up with is show you our forms page, because we do want you to go to our website so you don't use some of our older versions of the forms that are kind of out there. Occasionally we'll see some that trickle in. We do try to update the forms at least yearly. So in another week or two, we are updating almost every single form that we have. The vast majority of the changes are changing OSU to Ohio State to fit into the branding that Ohio State is doing now. So
You guys know about that branding requirements, so.
yeah, so I mean, to tell you, I mean, we have about 40 documents that we've changed. Most of it is because of this OSU issue. But one of the major changes that we made is we have on the policies page that Joni showed you, we have a policy now on responsibilities of researchers, so of principal investigators and of the research team. And we used to have a long list of bullets when you sign that says, you know, I will make sure I get IRB approval before any changes are made, etc. That's all in the policy now, so that's taken off of our application. And so a lot of the changes won't affect you that much on our forms, but you will be seeing announcements. Does anyone use OSU Today and scroll through for information about Ohio State? Okay. Yeah, because a lot of times we make changes and people say, I have no idea. And OSU Today and OSU Weekly is one of our main sources of news to try to get out to the Ohio State community of what we're doing. So our forms changes will be in OSU Today. And it'll also be on our main page. So our IRB page, we try to put all of our announcements there as well. So just be on the lookout for that. One thing I want to share about our forms is you can now submit electronically, yay. This is not the smart form that a lot of people still want. That is still in process, but in the interim, to save you headache and copying expense, you can now upload. Before, you know, we just had the forms were just too big, you know, email, it was too clunky. But we do have what's called IRB Submit. And basically, you just sign in with your OSU username, and you will be able to submit all of your files. It only allows you to do it one at a time, but it'll allow you to put as many documents as you need uploaded for your submission. And then the other catch is we still need signatures of the principal investigator and co-investigators, not key personnel. So if We've had people take pictures with their iPad. That's fine. Most people will get to a scanner, and as long as you sign it and scan it in and upload that, that'll work. And occasionally we have people that don't have access to scanners, and then you can fax it in. But again, if you fax it in, just try to give us as much information as possible so we can include it with your IRB Submit submission. Yes?
It's possible with Adobe Acrobat to sign a document electronically. It's not actually a physical signature, but it's like a stamp, and if you modify the document after you've signed it, that signature goes all away or something. It can't be modified after it's been signed.
Some
You
of
accept
them,
one of those? Is it the same difference?
some PDF forms are you can sign, but it has to be set up by whoever created the form.
Yeah.
Right, so the
And it's-
PI can set that up.
I think that has worked, but it also has not worked for some
So you
people.
prefer the physical signature in the
At
stamp
the moment,
page?
we do. What we're working on is an electronic approval process similar to the PA005 process, where you simply indicate your approval, and then it routes to your department chair or whoever the next up the line is, who would normally sign your IRB protocol. And it'll route like PA005. So we don't have that part up yet, but we wanted to get this out to people just because, this process of developing the Smart IRB form has been so lengthy. We've had so many difficulties with the vendor that we've been working with. We have the animal one up. The EIACUC has been up now for a bit. We are working on the IRB one, the fully smart form IRB one, but we're just not there yet. So we wanted to at least get an intermediate step up. And so the next step will be the electronic signature routing process so that you don't have to do a physical signature.
Lastly, I wanted to show you protocol lookup because a lot of our investigators that we talk to don't know about this either. This is once you've submitted anything and you're listed as a principal investigator, a co-investigator, key personnel, or additional contact if you want a study coordinator in your department to be listed on your submissions. They can look at this too. I'm signed in as one of our chairs, IRB chairs, and this is what she sees. So she can see that her city human research completion is finished. Same with her conflict of interest disclosure. And then a lot of people call me and say, what is this city Dawn? I didn't do it. And this Dawn is Department of Navy. So they have additional requirements for city. And so most people, that's going to say there's going to be an X, and that's fine. It only applies if you have Department of Navy funding. So what Carla sees when she logs in, anything that she's a principal investigator, and then underneath that a co-investigator or key personnel. And then you can sort by next submission due date if you want to look and see when your next continuing review will have to be turned in. We also let you know via email, but you can look ahead if you'd like. And then you can go in by protocol. So say you submitted an amendment and you hadn't heard from our office yet, and you're like, did the thing even get to the office? You can check and see what the last action was. So with this one, there was an amendment and it was received. So that would let you know that it was received in the office. And then we always check for completeness verification. And when it says incomplete, PI notified, if you didn't get that email notification, let our office know. It also lets you know that everybody on the staff is complete or not complete with their city or conflict of interest training. But if I go back out, I can show you, sorry. It's right on our main IRB page, both the IRB Submit to submit electronically as well as protocol lookup. And lastly, contacts. So we have about 20 people on the human subjects research side that you can contact. I help with anybody that has a city issue. I'm the one to contact for that. I also do about 25% of the exemptions, so I probably would recognize some of your names if you submit via exempt. So feel free to call me, and Joni and I can also set up any of those education opportunities at any of the regional campuses. But thanks for inviting us today.